Hey everyone, I'm your host, Robbie Strazynski, and thanks so much for joining us on episode number 87 of Cards Chat, the friendliest poker podcast in town. Today's guest is one of the most successful, respected, and well-liked people in poker. He's played and crushed the highest stakes No Limit Hold'em and Pot-Limit Omaha games, both live and online. He's also been one of the game's top coaches for over 15 years and has created one of the premier poker training sites on the market, which has also evolved into an online playing site that he's hoping to relaunch soon in the United States. All of this, and he has a lovely wife and a 3-year-old son as well. What else can we say? It's great to be Phil Galfond, and I'm so happy to have him with us here today on the Cards Chat Podcast. Phil, welcome to the show.
Hi, Robbie. Thanks for having me and for the lovely intro.
I feel like it's years in the making in a way. I really, I almost say you shouldn't covet. I know it's against the Bible kind of thing, but I've really coveted having the opportunity to speak with you in a forum like this. So I'm grateful for it, and thank you very much in advance for your time. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, my pleasure.
Cool.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yay. Okay, cool. So let's hope we both have a good time during this hour. Look, you've been interviewed a billion times. There's tons to talk about. It's kind of even difficult to know where to start. So, let's kind of begin a little bit unconventionally, I guess. What is a typical day like for you? And is there even such a thing?
Man, that's an excellent question. There's not really such a thing. It's varied year to year and month to month. And, last year was almost every single day was fully focused, at least the workday portion, fully focused on kind of getting Run It Once Poker on its path to the U.S. market. And we've by the end of the year, like the very end of the year, kind of settled on a direction there. And so now, kind of only just now in the last couple of months, I've had some more freedom with my time or time available to do other things. And I'm trying to, again, day to day is going to vary, but I'm trying to spend some more time brushing up my poker game.
Okay.
Looking for, looking forward to the World Series Poker. And I don't know how many tournaments I'm going to play, but I'm going to play a few, and we'll see what the cash game world has in store for me as well. But I'm looking to get more back into playing because 2021 was a year of very little poker for me.
Mm-hmm. So you've missed it.
I missed it. But yeah, to answer your question, I guess more specifically, I wake up at 6 a.m. ish, spend a little bit of time with my son, and then head into my office. And then it's going to be, poker studying, potentially some poker playing online, usually meetings, and or just kind of solo work. And that for most of the day, honestly. And then, yeah, afternoon, evenings with the family, and early bedtime, so that I can wake up at 6.
Right. Well, certainly, I imagine that's a little bit different than it had been, say, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. What did it used to be like? I'm sure there still wasn't necessarily a routine and things, were, changed from day to day, week to week. But what did it used to be like, the day to day prior to, single Phil Galfond?
Yeah, no, definitely, I had tried to start waking up earlier many times in my life, and I had always failed until I became a dad, and then I couldn't.
Your hand gets forced. Yeah.
Yeah. It was usually, I was probably, let's see, usually waking up in the early afternoon, like noon or 1, sometimes as late as 3, and morning coffee, and then playing poker, mostly, playing poker in one form or another.
Mm-hmm. Do you miss those days at all?
I do and I don't. I part of me does. I miss the freedom to, the freedom to kind of play a really long session without having to think about, oh, well, I have to get back to do this, or tomorrow I have to do this, or I have a meeting to get to. So I do miss the freedom aspect, but I actually do generally like the structured life a bit more. I feel usually more rested, actually, even despite having more things to do.
Right.
Just like being on that routine has helped a lot. And calmer.
Nice. Well, you certainly seem at peace with
Yeah.
yourself. That's a pretty cool thing. It's good. It's good trait to have, good characteristic. You talk about even more things to do. I know it's no secret you're one of the busiest people in the poker world. I imagine at or near the top of your list, of things that you gotta, you know, be doing and working on. You got the new course from Run It Once. This is PLO, your first ever full length course that you've put together on your own. When you first released it a little while back in beta form, it already had over 50 hours of content and 145 videos. That was, I believe, in January when you released it. You're still adding to it regularly. It's not yet the finished product. So, can you update us a little bit on the stats? How have you padded it over the last couple of months as far as like looking towards the finished product?
Yeah, we're getting very close. I'm getting very close to wrapping it up. And I think when I say wrapping it up, if I have ideas later of something that I think is missing, I think I'll probably add to it perpetually, because otherwise I never would have released it in the first place. I'm
Right.
too much of a perfectionist. I've been working on, so I'm rounding it out with some session reviews from my challenges. So just reviewing the footage from kind of some key days in each of my challenges. And I'm actually also working on a section dedicated to 6-max PLO, because the course is intended to teach people playing any form of PLO, but all of the hand examples thus far and like the solver work is heads up PLO only. And that was a common request. Request or question. Probably the most common question is, I play 6-max PLO. Is this going to help me?
Right.
My answer has been, I think so, but I'm waiting on feedback to find out for sure. But in addition to getting that feedback in, I am building out the course to have a little more 6-max specific content. And that should really be it. I mean, it's probably another 30 to 40 videos.
Okay.
15 to 20 hours, let's say.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it
Much
was,
more than just an appendix. Yeah.
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 But yeah, it's almost there. I'm getting there, and it's one of the other things that fills my days. But we're getting very close.
Nice. Well, for those, I wouldn't say a sneak peek because it's certainly public. If y'all want to take a peek at what This Is PLO has to offer, there's a YouTube video available for free if you're curious. And that piques everyone's curiosity. But there's a lot of people out there in the Cards Chat audience. To sort of narrow it down a little bit, who would you say that this course is geared most specifically to?
Great question. So, on Run It Once, we have things that span, we have a course from the ground up, which is for players who are, relatively new to the game to, play very casually, but would like to get better. And then really all the way up to courses like this. And this course, I would definitely not recommend for people who are not playing very seriously, unless, you're just wealthy and you really like your PLO game to get a bit better. But it's an expensive course. It's about $2,000, and in early access, it's actually going to go up once the course is completed. So this is for people who are serious about PLO. You don't need to be an expert in PLO to take it. It does kind of start, at least for Pets of PLO Theory, it starts kind of at the beginning and is kind of an A to Z course that covers really every part of the game tree. But you do need to have a decent understanding of poker in general. And I would say that means, like you've watched Run It Once elite videos and you didn't have to look up a lot of the words that people were using.
That dovetails sort of into what I was going to say is, yeah, so for those who aren't yet at that advanced level or have that sort of advanced wealth, there are, of course, the more starter plans. There's the essential and then the elite memberships at Run It Once. For those who aren't aware, or I'm sure it's been around forever, but if they're not aware specifically like the costs involved and what that offers, you want to just sort of tell folks about the basic plans.
Yeah, so our core products are, Run It Once Essential membership, which is $25 a month, and Run It Once Elite, which is $100 a month. And the only difference there is that Elite's getting access to more videos and higher stakes videos. But the content, even in Essential, is fairly advanced. We've a series of courses and kind of the most popular I don't know what to call them. See, I don't know. The most popular courses are from the ground up courses. So there's from the ground up. Our first from the ground up, I think it's just called from the ground up, but it's focused on no limit hold'em.
Right.
But we have from the ground up PLO, from the ground up MTT, from the ground up sit and go courses, and I think those are the best place. If you've never watched anything on Run It Once, I would start with one of those, depending on what your game type of choice is.
Sure.
And those range from I think $50 to $150 for a full course.
Right. So, there are folks who have never seen any Run It Once videos, and for that you do have the YouTube channel where you do offer some of those videos for free. I want to just take it sort of, step back from that a little bit. You could kind of understand, all the training sites out there. You want to give a little bit of a taste, before someone walks into the restaurant. But what's your sort of take on, people who, say, not necessarily ready to say, well, why should I spend money on training? There's just so much. And it's true, there really is a lot out there, video wise, article wise, so much strategy for free that you don't need to pay. So what should be sort of that point at which someone should say, well, that's not enough, I really ought to pay, and what does that money sort of get you?
That's an excellent question, because there's a lot of content out there for free, like you said, a lot of strategy articles. There are people streaming on Twitch, streaming on YouTube, releasing YouTube strategy videos. I think the big question is how much improving at poker matters to you, because while it's absolutely possible to learn from all these other sources, that like the big thing that paying money saves you is time. For listeners or viewers out there, even if so I don't have a list off the top of my head of the best YouTube channels to go to learn poker, or the best articles to check out, but they're all over the place. And the problem is you can kind of spend a lot of time going through articles. Here's an article about check raising the flop, and then somewhere else in another publication, here's an article about constructing a pre-flop 3-bet range. And the thing that a course does, or even a membership, is that it directs you. We're starting here, we're going to get to there. And so, like from the ground up, the basic one, I believe is $50. I should probably make sure that I'm telling the truth about that. We haven't raised the price, but if it saves you 10 hours of trying to cobble together that information from everywhere else, or even more so, it prevents you from getting bad information, because we at Run It Once have vetted it. It can pay for itself many times over, I think.
Right. Well, when you say vetting, what sort of vetting do you do when you bring coaches onto the roster?
Yeah, so we do a lot, actually. So a lot of sites, I guess I don't know this firsthand, but I was part of some before. A lot of coaches come to sites and say, hey, I'd like to make videos, and then they talk to them and potentially work out a deal. We actually do a lot of proactive reaching out to coaches, because we do a lot of research into who's having success in the games. So we're researching already before we reach out, and then any coach that we bring on, we are asking questions. We're trying to vet their results, essentially, to make sure that they're a winning player. It's been like 8 years since I was involved in the actual vetting of the results. So I don't want to speak with too definitively about what we do, but I know in the past we would check. We would ask for hands, like screenshots of their databases if they're online players, and check their results and things like that. And if there were publicly available information, whether it's live tournaments or online tournaments or online cash game tracking, we would check all that out. And then we get a demo video from every coach before we decide whether or not to hire them. And I used to review every single one.
Wow.
At this point, the last few years, they basically send it to me when they're not positive about it. So I still review quite a lot, but sometimes they're like, no, this guy's definitely good, or no, this person's definitely no good. And they don't send it along to me. But if there's ever any question, it comes to me as kind of the last reviewer.
The end boss reviewer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Another accolade there. Okay. The thing is, though, vetting results that they're real, legit, not just the Hendon mob, all that kind of stuff. We get that, but performing is not the same as being able to teach good performance. So, plenty of great basketball players out there, they'd make horrible coaches. They can execute very well, but they wouldn't necessarily know how to explain to someone else how to do what they do beyond just sort of natural talent and skill. In your mind, what makes for a great coach? You can go ahead and recruit people, but besides, they may not say no, but like you may say, oh wait, maybe we're a little wrong. They're great players, but maybe they're not, great instructors.
Yeah, we've had people who we've proactively reached out to and said, "Hey, are you interested in coaching? We'd like to have you as a coach." And they send us in a video, and then we say, "I'm sorry, it's not we thought it would be. It's not a fit." So it does happen sometimes, certainly. I mean, yeah, it is kind of hard to pinpoint what those qualities are, but I think the players who end up making the best coaches are generally introspective, self-aware. Because they're reviewing their own play a lot and thinking through where they need to improve and what they do right and what they do wrong. And those qualities, generally when they're thinking along those lines, they can explain themselves well and in video form as well. But the skill of teaching is definitely its own thing, and it's not necessarily correlated with success in poker. You need to have both. And I mean, I do think we'll have you want, the strongest poker player and the strongest teacher, and not everybody is both. And we kind of we'll have definitely a sliding scale on each where, as long as we're not actually scoring them, but as long as they're, like their total score between the two is good enough, we'll hire them. Right. We definitely have some coaches who are like, I would put higher up on the playing spectrum than the teaching spectrum, and vice versa.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. Well, besides Run It Once training, there is, of course, Run It Once poker itself. We'll go ahead and change gears so to throw you off balance a little bit. While you're doing all of this training material and sitting on top of that mountain, making sure everyone learns how to play the correct way, you're also working on the relaunch of Run It Once Poker in the U.S. Just, time-wise, folks, this episode's being recorded in mid-May 2022. Phil, can you give us an update, to the best of your ability? Where do things currently stand with that?
So we're, I'm gonna be a little measured just because now it's not my company anymore. Okay. At the end of last year, we sold the assets of Run It Once Poker to Rush Street Interactive, who operate in the Americas, but online gaming businesses, so casino, sports. For those in the U.S., you'll most likely have heard of them under the name Bet Rivers, where they have sportsbook and casinos. So it's been weird to me because as the owner of a small business myself, I've always just been just answer questions whenever they're asked. But now I have to think, okay, well, what information is this public company willing to share, and what? So I know that right now they haven't given a launch date, so I can't speak to a launch date itself. We've been this year has been, like, early in this year was dedicated to figuring out what exactly we want in our launch product. So looking at where we were at, where we want it to be, and making all those decisions. Do we want to change certain features and policies for the U.S. market? Do we want to fix things that we didn't feel worked well or might not work well in the U.S. market? So we've accomplished that. We spent a few months kind of getting to a rough idea of MVP in the U.S. market, and at this point it's going to be building it out, integrating with their existing verticals, because I'm not positive at which stage we'll pull the trigger and launch, but I know that the end goal is a shared wallet and single sign-on, so that that it's a good experience for everybody to kind of switch between whatever they want to be playing. And then there's the regulatory element. So we're going to be launching in regulated markets only. So right now that's a handful of states. We hope and think that more states are coming slowly but surely.
More states are better.
Yeah, and we'll be yes. So we're doing all those things and working to get into those. But like I said, I don't have a date in mind just.
That's fair. Well, you did mention MVP, and naturally it's something associated with Phil Galfond, the MVP. But we're not talking about most valuable player. It's the minimum viable product, for those who are unaware of what that abbreviation stands for. I do want to kind of like dive a little deeper on one thing, though. You mentioned it's no longer your company, and the reasons. You very publicly in a blog post you shared with everybody, what the move was and the reasons why that happened. It's kind of like, all of us who've been kind of rooting for your success, and there's tons of us in the industry doing that. Kind of like, that little bit of a heartbreak, but because we're all, vested in wanting this to be a really cool thing. And yet, now there's the new chapter, but it's not like you've washed your hands of it. You're still clearly involved. It still, has a very special place in your heart. And, they didn't just acquire the assets. Obviously you're still part of this journey, but like you said, it's not your company anymore. What has that transition been like for you from being the ultimate decision maker to just sort of, I guess, still an integral part of the wider team?
So far, it's actually been fantastic. I had concerns about it, like for the reasons you mentioned, but really, what I realized over the last several years is that I absolutely love working on product, working on design. I love working on setting policies and coming up with features and innovating games. But there are a lot of other aspects to running a business beyond just those, especially when it's the size of Run It Once Poker. I've had Run It Once training for a long time as a small business compared to what Run It Once Poker was, and like right now, after this transition, it's been great because I get to focus on the parts that I really love, the parts that I'm passionate about, and feel I have a lot to contribute. But I no longer have kind of the other aspects on my shoulders. There, other people are handling those, and so it's been great, and they've been completely receptive. There hasn't been a point, there hasn't been a single situation where I've said I like my team and I have come up with an idea or said we really think it's important that this remains the same, or that we set this policy this way, that they've given us any pushback. And it's not to say that'll never happen, but they brought us on because of our expertise in poker and because they liked what we did with coming up with features, and designing the software and setting policies that we as poker players understand better than they'd likely be able to understand themselves without having spent a lot of time on poker.
Sure. Well, while we're all waiting with bated breath for the return, whenever that may be, now that that's where your focus is, are you able perhaps just maybe a teaser to clue us in on certain features or little things that you may be working on to be integrated into the newly relaunched product?
Well, so the biggest thing that we were missing very clearly in our previous product, which we're still working on, but biggest thing we're missing is MTTs, multi-table tournaments.
Yep.
And that's something that we decided is a must-have before launching in the U.S. market, as it's just too big a part of what a poker site is. So yeah, we'll definitely have those, and I've actually the designs are beautiful, and I'm really excited to get those finalized and test them out, because I think we did a great job with them. The MTTs themselves are, so our cash games and our sit and goes, in both of those, we came up with a lot of kind of brand new ideas that had never been done before in the industry. And our MTTs are going to be, there's going to be less of that in our MTTs, MTTs. It's hard to say. It'll be more, MTTs will be kind of what you're used to from other sites in multi-table tournaments, but kind of in the Run It Once design and style, and with some added user interface friendly elements, I'd say.
Okay, that's fair. Well, Phil, you've made it through level 1 and level 2. It's time to raise the blinds once more. I've never been one to fan the flames of any scandals in our industry, but obviously there's a good deal going on right now, and I'm sure you and of course our Cards Chat audience can appreciate the paramount importance of game security and integrity. you've got vast experience as a player using and creating training tools, playing online. How safe do you think players are when playing online now in 2022? And how effective, in your opinion, are sites when it comes to detecting cheating?
It's a great question. I think to answer your last question, I think it varies quite a bit. I think there are some sites who take it very seriously, and there are others who don't. And really, it's important that the site cares about curbing behavior, because this behavior, because they're not necessarily economically incentivized to. A site,
Hmm.
if you're on a site where there are a bunch of bots playing, but the public doesn't know that, that's not a bad thing for the site itself. The bots, I mean, there's a lot more player volume, there's more liquidity, generating more rake. So in a lot of cases, if there's not a regulator forcing them to do so, or they aren't kind of just people who care about the integrity of poker intrinsically, there's not a lot of incentive for these, or scandals aren't breaking all the time, and players aren't figuring it out on their own. There's not a lot of incentive to kind of stop that behavior as much as some sites do. I think it's tough to say, because obviously, like right now, there's a lot of talk about scandals in online poker. I don't think it's more dangerous than it's been. I think if anything, it's safer than it has been in the past, just because the tools that sites use to detect cheating are progressing. And the public perception, I think, is that because technology has progressed and now poker bots are stronger than they've ever been,
Right.
risks are higher. But my view of the reality is actually that bots have been able to beat mid-stakes MTTs for, I don't know, a decade plus, and maybe not quite as decisively as they can now, but I think kind of close. And so it's really been more like the progression of technology, I think, on the whole, benefits the operator more in being able to detect these things. So I actually think it's been, now, all that said, it's unsettling to hear that bots have been able to beat the games for a long time, and that they are out there and they do exist. And I think they always have, and they have for at least a decade. And I think they always will. But they are on most sites, as far as I know, a small minority of the player pool. And in all but the highest stakes games, they haven't made the games unbeatable. And so, based on an individual site, the number of accounts that are behaving unethically in one way or another are going to vary from site to site, but I think they're relatively small at all stakes. Now, at the highest stakes, I think it's kind of a different world, because now you have top players who are extremely smart and understand the game extremely well, who have the ability potentially to use real-time assistance. And the key there is that if there's a bot ring at small stakes with 30 accounts that are operating off the same software, and whether or not they have hired individual people to click the buttons, they're going to exhibit patterns. These 30 accounts are all going to play similarly. They're going to exhibit not only patterns in their play, but patterns in their kind of whether it's IP addresses or software used on the computer, or where they set up their accounts from, and the types of banks they use to fund the accounts. There are going to be patterns for the sites to catch. But the highest stakes, an individual really sharp player using real-time assistance and deviating from it when they see fit, either to kind of obfuscate the fact that they're using assistance, or because they think a play is better, that's a lot harder to detect. And so I think the lower stakes ecosystem, obviously sites need to stay vigilant, and they are for the most part. But the I don't think there need to be massive changes in the way that we do things. I think at the highest stakes, there do need to be changes. And I think, one thing I heard Rob Young mention is webcams required for a lot of games. I think something like that is very smart. I think we need to start looking into things like that for the higher stakes games. To ensure their integrity. And like these scandals have shown us that is happening more than we thought at the high stakes.
Well, it was a big question. That's a damn impressive answer. Genuinely, I'm not being facetious. Also additional points for excellent use of the word obfuscate. You did mention Rob Young. I just got to point out he was episode number 55, our interviewee there here on the CardsChat podcast. Again, this is 87. That means you got 86 wonderful episodes to listen to after you finish this one, if you haven't already. And how about on the run it once front? Is there anything you're able to say? Obviously this is, every site has its own proprietary methods and ways of monitoring things and performing their security and integrity checks. But is there something specific that you're very happy that Run It Once Poker had done and will continue to do as far as its operations to maintain security and integrity of the game?
Yeah, I would say the main thing that I'm really happy about is not necessarily something we did before, but something we're now able to tap into with a resource like Rush Street Interactive, who has really strong, powerful software already, kind of policing fraud in their sports books and their casinos. And while the back end of that right now is not built for poker specific logic, the tools are really powerful, and we come in with poker specific knowledge, and I think working with us, those tools are going to get stronger and stronger and be really helpful in kind of fast tracking our ability to police things at scale. Because at Run It Once Poker on our own, we took game integrity very seriously, but we were still completing our product. We didn't have multi-table tournaments yet, and so our policing was done a lot more manually than it would be at Stars, a Party Poker, something like that. And so we had the poker know-how to do those checks manually and do them well, and we had a small enough player pool that it was viable to do them manually. But now hopefully we'll have a much bigger player pool, and we'll have the tools to use a lot more automation in our detection.
Nice, very cool. Well, look, I said in the beginning, there's just such a wide net that can be cast, so many different things and topics that we could talk to you about. We talked about training, we talked about the Run It Once brand, we talked about game integrity. You have so many hats in this industry, and can speak to them with such expertise. Let's switch to the first one though, the Phil Galfond player hat. And what's the deal with the Galfound Challenges? Where do we stand, man?
Another good question. So as far as the challenges that were kind of set initially, the ones that are not complete really are my challenge against Jungle Man, and then my challenge against Bill Perkins. And those two, I'm a little bit difficult to schedule with, and those two are also very difficult to schedule with, and that's what's been kind of holding those back. I want to play more challenges, and the biggest hurdle right now, honestly, I would want to play challenges for the majority of the year. I just want to keep playing challenges.
Nice.
But the biggest hurdle is that I wouldn't say I'm stuck here in Las Vegas, but my son's in school.
Sure.
We have our home here. My wife's happy here. I at the start of my challenges in 2020, we went to Vancouver for 5 months or so, which actually proved to be not enough time to complete them all. I thought we were going to play faster than we did. And so my biggest challenge is finding challenges that I can play from here, which restricts me on regulated sites to people in Nevada, people in New Jersey. I don't know. Is Delaware in? I don't know. I don't think
Michigan, Pennsylvania, maybe. That sort of
thing. But I think Pennsylvania's not shared player pool yet. Maybe. Anyways,
yes.
We're working towards that. I know Michigan's on the way to shared player pool. So it's really just finding challengers is the issue, and there are a lot of it's hard to find people to play, but if you open it up to Europe and Canada, there are definitely people willing to give me action, but I don't think they're willing to travel to New Jersey for several months to play me. And so that's been the biggest hurdle right now, is trying to find action where I am.
Okay, that's fair assessment. Okay, so let's go back a little bit further. I remember you first came on my radar as a player when you played on those original seasons of High Stakes Poker.
Mhm.
Obviously, already at that time you were an online poker beast. I wasn't following online poker that seriously at the time, so that was like, oh, okay, who's this? Phil Galfond, this OMG Clay Aiken character. Could you give us maybe some their favorite memories of hands? You don't have to go through the hands, but any particular moments when you hit the big stage, so to speak, that kind of remember fondly?
It's tough because so my first couple experiences on high stakes poker, I was just so nervous, and I don't look back on them fondly. Those were stressful memories. For me. There was I don't know. I think back to so I played some poker after darks that I felt better about. There was a high stakes poker that I think was the last season before it well took a hiatus.
Mhm.
And it's back now. And there were a lot of hands that I don't know. I felt pretty good playing that time. There was one hand actually I remember against. I'm not going to get the board or anything
That's fine.
accurate. But there was a hand I played against Phil where I three bet, and like he opened late position. I three bet from the blinds he called, and I think it was something like a let's call it like Queen 7-4 flop, and I had Ace 4 with a backdoor flush, rainbow flop. I had Ace 4 with a
Yeah.
backdoor flush draw, and I bet, and he raised, and I ended up thinking he was bluffing enough to shove my hand. But I tanked for a long time, and I had figured at the time that he either had me beat and was calling, or he was bluffing and was folding. But there was just enough in the pot that shoving it in made sense rather than just calling and letting him hit,
Right.
one of the cards or something. And I shoved, and he actually had a better hand and folded. He had like a pocket pair, mid pocket pair, and was kind of finding out where he was at. And I didn't wasn't so like I actually I made the play of putting all the money in, just thinking my hand was good often enough. But I looked smarter than that because it looked like I bluffed him off a better hand. I didn't intend to do that.
Nice. It's fun. Like, I can't remember that specific hand, but the way you describe it, I could hear Gabe Kaplan going, "Wow," or something like that on the commentary. Very nice. All right. Well, the show is back. So is Poker After Dark. When's your next appearance on High Stakes Poker, Phil?
That's a question to ask them.
Oh,
I'd love to hop back on. They I actually should probably just reach out directly and say, hey, I'd love to play in one of your upcoming.
the people want to see Phil Galfond,
Yeah, no, I'm ready to. I mean, they film here in Vegas, so
right?
it's for me to get to, and it is something I'd love to do. So, all right, Robbie, I'll text them.
You heard it here first, folks, on the Cards Chat podcast. When Phil Galfond gets on season 10 of High Stakes Poker, it's because we asked him to do so. Brent Hanks, pick up the phone, buddy. Okay. Um, People think of you, Phil, primarily, and rightfully so, as a PLO player, no limit hold'em, but obviously you are a very accomplished mixed game player as well, including deep WSOP runs and final tables in several different variants of the game. And you've got a bracelet, back in 2015 in the 10K, no limit, deuce seven, single draw, probably the purest form of the game. Tell us a little bit about your passion for mixed games beyond PLO and no limit.
I love learning new games, and I think mixed games are far and away the most fun format of poker to play. It can playing a single game, regardless of how fun the game is, just can get monotonous after a while. I mean, I love it. Doesn't really happen heads up because just the action's so fast. But if you're playing at a full table, I think mixed games are far and away the most fun. I have so there was a game I played in for a few years here in Vegas that was known as the Big Bet Mix. So it was something like, I don't know, 12 games, all no limit and pot limit. And a lot of them, nobody in the game had played before until the game started, and we kind of all learned, figured it out together.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed that, and I think I became pretty good at a lot of those games. But as far as other mixed games, I feel I've never gotten good at any limit game outside of deuce to seven triple draw. And that's because for a while on full tilt, the deuce 7 triple draw straight ran a lot, and I put a lot of time and effort into that. Every time I've tried to learn, horse, 8-game mix, horse essentially, I've been trying to learn them all at once, and I haven't put enough time into it, and I just feel my poker habits that I've built through playing PLO and No Limit Hold'em don't translate as well to limit games. And so I still feel, I frankly feel like a fish at all horse games.
Wow.
Today.
Gotta say that is not an answer I expected, but you're in luck, because there's a very handsome podcast host out there who is hosting a mixed game festival at Resorts World starting on June 12th until the 16th. You can play as low as 4-8, and it's okay. Once in a while, even Phil Galfond can be the fish, and you're more than welcome to join us over there. Again, unexpected, but if you're going to put it out there like that, I will certainly promote it. And if you want to take a little bit of a break from bracelet hunting at the World Series, you're more than welcome to show up, say hello. But on the note of bracelet hunting, you mentioned you're studying, you're putting in the time, the effort to make a good showing at the World Series. What events do you plan on playing?
So in the last WSOP, it happened in the fall, so not last summer, but last fall, I had said going in, I'm busy, I'm working on some other things, but at the end there are a couple of PLO high rollers. I forget. Oh, there's the 50K Poker Players Championship, which I love, despite not thinking I'm great at half the games. So I went into it thinking, okay, I'll just play a few. I'll play a handful at the end. And then the end came around, and then I said, well, I'm waking up at 6 a.m. I'm liking my schedule that I'm in. I don't really feel like changing things up right now. And so I ended up skipping everything. I didn't play anything last series. And so my wife, Farrah, she likes when I play tournaments. And so she's been pushing me to this series, play a few at the beginning, and then see how I feel. And honestly, my expectation is I'll only play a few, maybe 3 to 5 over the whole series.
Wow.
But I'm going to start out with a few at the beat. So I want to play the early ones that are really interesting to me are the 25K heads up no limit, and then the 2 PLO high rollers. And so I want to play those, and at my wife's suggestion, if I'm having fun,
right.
And it's still the start of summer, I can play a bunch more. If I'm not having fun, then after that I can go play cash games or work on the business or something else.
Huh, interesting. I'm curious, why does she like when you play tournaments?
I think she just likes she likes rooting for me and kind of sweating and checking the updates on Poker News. 'Cause I'm a cash game player primarily, and yes, the results matter, but it's not the same thing as chasing glory in the tournament. She really likes watching or following tournament journey.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you mentioned Farrah, so that opens the door. Not chasing glory, but chasing Farrah. She was obviously an actress on Days of Our Lives and One Life to Live. Did you just happen to be sitting one morning watching your regular daily soaps and like, yeah, I have to meet her? So what exactly happened there? How did the two of you meet?
No, well, if anything, she chased me.
Okay.
But no, what happened was she was forced by a show she was on to get a Twitter account. She didn't want to, and she did. And long story short, poker was a hobby of hers. She played recreationally for a long time. She followed some poker players, and I was one of them. Okay. And after it was a really slow developing thing, but she replied to a tweet of mine. I replied back. There was months pass. It happens again. It starts to happen a little more frequently. And then at one point it was kind of, we were talking back and forth on Twitter somewhat regularly. And then from there, moved to starting to text. And I eventually, so I was living in Vancouver at the time. She was in LA. And I have a lot of friends in LA. And so I at some point said to her, hey, I'm, going to LA to visit my best friend for a while. so I'll be around if you want to meet. And we did meet, and the rest was history. And actually, I mean, I did go see my best friend, but I made up the trip just because, we when were we going to meet if I didn't?
As you're saying, and I'm smiling because I full disclosure, I do remember hearing this story before. I think you may have told it on maybe I think on the Poker Stories podcast with Julio Rodriguez. I think so, card player one. But it's such a fun story. I wanted to make sure everyone listened to it again. And it's also pretty cool when you have a wife who kind of enjoys a life partner who enjoys poker, maybe not to the extent that you do, but who shares that interest. That's always a really cool thing. And, beyond just sort of rooting for you because she's married to you, but just having like a vested in, I get this game. I know what's going on here. This is cool. My guy, he's going to take it down. How about her though? Does she study? Does she, an essential and an elite member at Run It Once?
She's gotten her account's got access to everything for free.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
since we had Spencer, which is about 3.5 years ago,
Mhm.
she has not played that much, and she really misses it. She was, before then, she was actually playing more than I was. So I was kind of, buried under the business and working hard on that. She was going to play live cash games, I don't know, a few times a week. And she really misses it. It's been hard for her, not just because of the time commitment of, being a mom, but she also kind of felt, she kind of felt silly. Like she would go out to play. She'd try every once in a while to go out to play, and she would just miss our son and think like, why am I here in a casino and I could be back home with him? And so she struggled with that for a while. I think now that he's older and getting there, I think she's ready to try again, and play some more. And I hope that she, doesn't have that kind of level of, I don't know, mom guilt and anxiety, and can really enjoy it because she loves it. And I know she misses it. And as much as she loves being a mom, I know she misses kind of, pursuing a passion outside of that. So I'm hopeful. I know she's going to play a little bit this World Series, and I'm hopeful she, can fully enjoy it. And then there's more of that in the future.
Nice. Well, that's great. And we'll certainly be on the lookout for some Farrah Galfond sightings at the World Series. And how about yourself? I know you enjoy being a dad. Obviously, you try to be as involved as you can. How do you sort of strike that balance? Again, it's obviously, the roles are different, but the desire is the same to just want to be a good parent. So how do you see yourself currently and wanting to sort of balance that passion for poker, obviously all the other work stuff as well, with the hashtag dad life?
So I've done I don't find it very difficult when my life is scheduled because, I'm, I guess it's varied at different points, but I'm trying to like start working super early and be done in the late afternoon, like 3:30. And then I have, every weekday I have, all evening to hang out with them. And then I have both, weekend days, to hang out with them now. And that works with challenges too, because I schedule the challenges during that workday. And so I still get all that time. When it comes to like World Series of Poker and live poker, even online poker games, if I want to play non-heads up games where the schedule's not really up to me, it's just when the games are running, I think it'll be a lot more challenging. And so, this WSOP, I'm not super worried about it. I'm planning to just play a handful of events. And even if I play more, it's over in a month and a half. So if I don't see him as much in a month and a half, if I see him half as much as I normally do, it's not the end of the world, but because it's temporary. But I don't know, to do something like that long term, it'd be really hard. And I don't have plans to right now, but if the opportunity comes up and it seems like I should be, playing in games or playing in tournaments that make that tougher. I mean, it's hard. I don't know how, people who do it, it's really challenging, especially people who, both parents do it. It's really challenging. But I will say whether it's biology or just because I view the game differently than Farrah does, I don't have, like, if, one night I do go out and play, if I do play a tournament for a couple of days and I don't see him for 24 hours, I don't have kind of the same level of guilt about it that you, I'm going to see him the next day and everything's okay.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair take. Well, Spencer is what, 3.5 years old, you said. Does he know that you once had a slide? Like, what's his slide situation?
He doesn't know that I had a slide once. He's got a very small wooden slide upstairs. Uh, if he found out, he'd be pretty upset that his is he has such a weak slide.
I had to throw that one.
Yeah, we'll try to
All
keep that
right, well,
for
all right,
years, and then we'll try to keep that come from him for a couple more years, and then
okay,
I don't know. I'm actually hoping that he gets really upset about it, and we have to put a slide in our house because
right.
Farrah wouldn't sign off on it yet. But
There you go.
if
What goes around comes around. Of course, we talked about the famous slide that Phil used to have. He had two apartments in Manhattan, right? And with the slide going from the top to the bottom, legendary stuff. In some of your YouTube videos, Phil, there are several books on a shelf behind you, and I think I saw The Biggest Bluff by Maria Konnikova. You can see it maybe over your right shoulder over there. Episode number 6. That was Maria Konnikova. She was on this show before. I think there are also some poker strategy books in there too. What titles do you have there, and which of them helped or influenced you, or is someone just saying, "Hey, please put my book over there up your shoulder so people see it"?
So I haven't read most of these books, if I'm being honest. I have there are a few 2+2 books. Um,
The publishing company, yeah.
yeah, you know what? Actually, I met with Mason once uh, a couple years ago now, and he just gave me a few books. And so the ones that are the 2+2, I mean, I had 2+2 books before then, and I've read them, but the ones that are up there are actually the ones he gave me, and I don't think I've read them yet. Sorry, Mason. But I have read a lot of 2+2 books. My first poker book that kind of helped me kind of get on the right path was Hold'em Poker for Advanced Players.
Okay.
But no, I have I'm the kind of person who buys books with aspirations to read them and then never does. Actually, Maria's book is the only one up there that I've read, and actually I haven't finished it. I've read like half of it.
There you go.
I don't know. I always feel too busy to read, but it's probably a bad excuse.
That's a typical thing that content creators have, too busy creating in order to consume. So I totally get that. But if you're going to pick one of the books off that shelf, Maria's is definitely the one you want to be picking and maybe finishing, at some point during during the World Series. Great stuff there. Um, the video that you released for Run It Once to introduce the Jungle Man, to introduce Dan Cates as a member of the training team, it was among the nominees for a Global Poker Award. And it's quite the piece of video that really captured his personality. What's the story behind that? Who came up with the idea, and what made you decide, this is how we're going to go ahead and introduce him to the Run It Once world?
We long story short, we've wanted Jungle Man to make videos for a long time. We've pitched it to him several times, and he's always thought about it and then decided not to. And this time, as part of our pitch, one of our team had the idea of putting together fun videos like we have. We've put together several and released them because I know that Jungle Man likes doing stuff like that. He has fun with it.
Yeah.
And so we actually, as part of our pitch, put together, how we would market it, and we knew it would be a way that he'd find interesting. And I don't know whether that was the straw that broke the camel's back or not, but he did decide to make videos finally. And it was actually I actually don't even know what his technical. I don't know if he has a title, but Mikey Stotts, who's actually been a friend of mine since high school and has worked on Run It Once since the inception. He came up with the idea and wrote the majority of the videos that have come out. And yeah, he's a creative guy, to say the least.
Shout out to Mikey Stotts. All right. Well, we got one last question of mine before we get into the community questions from our Cards Chat members. It's a bit of a big question to wrap up on, but here you go. The game of poker has always had a few bumps and bruises along the way, like it has recently, but nonetheless, it powers through it. It constantly, at least since Black Friday, the ultimate tanking, it has continued to grow, to mature, to get bigger and bigger. And, that's a good thing, a good positive trajectory to have. you've been around the game for quite a while. Um, can you sort of give us, again, to sort of wrap up my line of questioning here, your perspective and your thoughts about the game now versus back when you started, and where you think it's headed in the future, and where you'd like for it to go in the next maybe 5 to 10 years?
This is a big question, and I think you're like me that in that you love the game, we love the game, and we don't really like, like I don't know. I'll speak for myself, but it's really a bummer how much negativity comes up in the game. Yet my passion for the game overpowers any of that. It would be easy for me to think like, I don't know, these recent cheating scandals just like did bum me out in general, but I just love poker too much to consider doing anything else, despite all that. I think the game, it's changed in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it hasn't. The tools that we use to study have changed dramatically since I started playing, I don't know, 18 years ago or something. But at the end of the day, even with tools this advanced, you need to be the one making decisions at the table, and those decisions still, like the process of learning and then applying that knowledge and making decisions, I don't feel like has changed that much. The knowledge that we're getting is more powerful than it used to be, but it's still just the same. It's still just the same, the same process of learning and then getting to the table and trying to optimize kind of performance and being able to execute what you've learned away from the table to the best of your abilities. So I feel like the process of playing, there's a period where solvers were out. I was not studying with them that much, and I was getting very pessimistic about the future of poker, and my future in poker. And it wasn't until I actually started studying with them and playing that I realized that the game is still the same game. And these are tools that, help improve your understanding of the game. But at the end of the day, nobody is capable of playing anywhere close to the way that a solver plays.
Right.
And there will always be mistakes in every player's game. And if you're sharp enough to catch the mistakes and figure out what to do about them, then there's always going to be an edge to be had. And I think that's just always going to be the case unless, X years from now, we just all have chips in our head and you can't stop just getting the right answer immediately.
Right.
So, I think that aspect of the game is always going to be around. I think the biggest struggle that we face is, post Black Friday, the marketing money went away and the TV shows went away for a long time. And, they're coming back in some ways. They're coming back, but PokerGo is doing a fantastic job, but it's behind a paywall. It's not on cable television.
Right.
We have streams on YouTube, which, in some ways is, I don't know, maybe better than being on cable. I don't know. But I do think that we've kind of struggled to create characters over the past 10 years or so. And, there's been a lot of great people and great players, very interesting players and people who have just not become known to the general public. And I think that's, and now kind of, so I suspect that as more and more companies in the US gaming space add poker, and as poker comes to more and more states, there's going to be now an influx of money to, which should lead to an influx of poker TV once again. And I think that what remains to be seen, and I think, what is very important is how we create that TV and how we lean into the characters of today, which admittedly, come in very different form than the characters of 15 years ago, because there are a lot of people like myself who, play poker from our computers and study theory and have not lived necessarily as colorful and crazy a life as the gamblers of the past did. Yet, I know these people personally very well. There are a lot of really interesting people to get to know. And so I think that I do think that there's going to be more poker coming, more poker on TV coming to the US, and then therefore to the rest of the world as well. And I really hope that they figure out how to make it compelling, not just because the poker is going to be the poker, but I think what makes it compelling is the people at home rooting for and rooting against people they're watching on TV. And so I think that's the biggest hurdle and the biggest challenge facing producers in the coming years. But I think we have an opportunity, and I hope that we capitalize on it.
That's a nuanced, layered, excellent, detailed answer, and I feel like I want to stand up and give you an ovation. I love it. You say you speak for yourself, but I've got to be positive that there's folks out there listening and watching this saying, yeah, like just looking forward to some hopefully excellent years of growth. Like you said, it's a matter of hopefully the money pouring in, and hopefully the best is very much yet to come. Just curiosity, do you still have a little bit of extra time? We have time for like a chat around, or should we go straight into you do? Okay, so we'll get a few rapid fire questions in before we get just first thing that hits your mind before we move into the community questions. Phil, what's your favorite TV show?
Oh no. I should have warned you I'm not good at rapid fire questions.
Okay.
I guess I'll go with Game of Thrones, even though it's over.
Excellent. Okay, what is your favorite soap opera?
Days of Our Lives.
Excellent. So what is your favorite poker movie not named Grounders?
I forget which one it was called, but I really liked the Bond movie that was poker based, but actually the poker was terrible in it.
Casino Royale?
Casino Royale. But I like the movie enough that I'll go with that.
Okay, fair enough. Good take. Who is the best PLO player in the world?
Man. It's gonna be either Sauce. So these are people who are not Sauce and Very Sweet are the two players. I mean, people who don't follow online poker might not be as familiar, but those are the two players who kind of scare me. They haven't been playing much PLO lately, so maybe if I played them today, it would go okay. But those are the two players that stand out to me as I'd be nervous.
Well, the correct answer to that question is actually Phil Galfond, but we will accept your answer. What celebrity would you like to play a live Galfound challenge against?
Oh, wow. I guess I'll just go with Kevin Hart. I know he's played it. My wife's played with him a few times and has enjoyed it. And I know he loves the game and is a funny guy to be around.
That would be ridiculously entertaining. And just a shout out to my buddy Mike, who helped compile this wonderful little chatter round of questions here. What percentage of good poker is math-based?
Oof. So I'm feeling compelled to mention a lot of nuance here, because poker, a lot, like almost all good poker is math-based, but doesn't need to be math-focused.
Okay.
You need to have some understanding of how the math works, but it doesn't have to be the top of your mind. I think that I can play a very strong session, thinking about math for 5% of the time.
Okay, we will accept that. Speaking of 5, how many 5-minute showers have you taken in your online poker career?
A few dozen.
Okay. Great. For those who don't know, what we're referring to, of course, is a 5-minute break in between levels when playing online. That's awesome. Who has your toughest heads-up opponent been, whether in Galfound Challenge or otherwise?
I'm gonna go with Benny Vitti. He was obviously he wrecked me at first and I did make a comeback, but he actually, more than anybody else, adapted throughout the challenge. And kind of every time I spotted something that I thought I could take advantage of, within a few sessions, he was doing something different.
Cool. Okay. Um, Besides playing too many hands, obviously that's the correct choice. I think Benny VD. It's just like I just having followed that's just injecting my own personal opinion there. It's just a hell of a challenge to follow, and I think there were a lot of railbirds for that one, saying, "Okay, this dude, he knows what he's doing here." Um, Besides playing too many hands, in 10 words or less, what is one mistake that recreational PLO players can correct to help their game?
Drawing to the second best hand is
Excellent.
what I'm
Yeah,
doing.
good advice. Yeah. And not that I'm a recreational PLO player specifically, but yeah, that's good advice. I got to remember that too. Um, which number is bigger, Elon Musk's net worth or the number of poker hands you've played?
Elon Musk's net worth.
Okay. Is it close?
I don't think so.
Okay. You played a lot of poker in 18 years. So, okay. This is something we always ask everyone at the Cards Chat podcast. Who are the friendliest poker players you've ever had the joy of playing with at the Felt?
Two popped right into my head: Jason Kuhn and Brandon Shack Harris.
Nice. Excellent. Good. Yeah, we got to get them on the show. We haven't had either of them yet. Hopefully, they will come on as well to the friendliest poker podcast in town. And we'll do. Well, you already kind of answered this one. Again, just shout out to he asks, will you ever incorporate playground equipment into your living quarters again? But I think we've covered that ground. All right. So in this segment of the show, final segment here, we turn to you guys, our Cards Chat community, to see what questions you wanted to ask our guests. We have a dedicated thread on the Cards Chat forums for this. So as we announce who our future guests will be, please be sure to send in your questions. And our first one comes from Terry K, the name I don't believe I've seen either before or in a long time. So thank you, Carrie, for sending this one in. Phil, Terry wants to know, what is your most embarrassing moment in poker thus far?
I played a hand on high stakes poker, I think the first time I was on, where it was like 6-way to the river. We checked it down and I mucked a chop. I had half the pot, but I didn't realize it.
Ooh, wow. Like clearly you answered that instantly. So wow, that's interesting one. Okay. Uh Doug PKR Monstad, definitely a name I've never seen before. So thank you for sending this question in. Phil, you're widely regarded as a top PLO authority with your training site and lately the Heads Up matches. What was your biggest aha moment when learning PLO? And what would you say is the most important lesson you learned when moving up in stakes? Great question.
Yeah, really great question. Tough question to answer too. I think I guess I will say the biggest aha moment is just realizing, especially coming from No Limit, that you don't really need to force things in PLO. Um, there's a lot of opportunity to just wait for the right cards, whether it be the right draws to call or to raise with, or the right blockers to make a bluff with. You just get the right cards so frequently when you have 4 of them that kind of like trying to make something happen too frequently is dangerous.
Nice. Okay. Very cool. This is a great question I like from SN0112. Again, another new question asker. Thank you for putting this forward. Very nuanced, very detailed here. So to start off like this, apologies as you're probably tired of talking about this, but I've heard that your epic comeback against Benny Vidi was described as one of the biggest achievements in poker history. You explained your decision to take a break from the challenge in great detail, but, and here's the great question I like, what was your strategy for study and mental recovery during that break? I think that's something we could, learn a lot. It's a very, an insightful question that, hopefully we could kind of learn from. What goes through one of the minds of the greatest players?
Yeah, that's a good one. So, in the past, before I was playing challenges, whenever I would encounter a downswing and really kind of be struggling, I would take a break. I'd take time off until I felt ready to continue. And in a challenge, you don't have that luxury. I ended up paying for that luxury in this challenge, paying penalties to take some days off. And I was also fortunate that we had some pre-planned days off because Vinny was going on vacation this time. So the first step was just a couple of days to just step back and kind of re-enter the real world and get out of my head. I worked a lot with Elliot Rowe, who's my mindset and performance coach, on just getting my head on straight. And then I think the most impactful thing I did was to go and play hands against other players on the break, because when someone's just crushing you, for lack of a better way to phrase it, your perception and pattern recognition, everything's off. You just can't. It's really hard to play with confidence and to make good reads, because so often you've decided to make that call on the river and they've just had it. And does that mean they're never bluffing, or does it mean they're running hot? I think due to the number of buy-ins he won in a short amount of time, I think I could tell that it was in large part due to running hot. And so, but even knowing that, my pattern recognition's off. I couldn't find spots. Like normally when you play somebody who's running average, you get a lot of samples of, okay, these are the spots they like to bluff in, or they've taken this line that means something. And I just couldn't figure anything out because he just kept having a good hand. And so playing against other players where I didn't have that hanging over my head and all of that clouding my judgment and my ability to play, and actually having good results is what gave me the confidence to not only continue, but to play my game once we did continue.
Excellent. That's very insightful. I feel like I'm sitting there also. I want to be taking notes on exactly what you say. I like that a lot. And clearly that's something that even world-class players need to take that step back and kind of, I don't know, what's the right word, but like sort of take in what it is that's going on, and remember, go ahead and crush some other nits, and remember, I'm Phil F. and Galfond. I can do this, like almost the Rocky way of doing it. You did mention Elliot Rowe, and we did have him on episode number 20 of this podcast as well. Feel free to listen to that one. And a bonus shout out, of course, he came up with that great course that in conjunction with Run It Once, the A Game Masterclass. That's a really good resource there. Got time for one last question. Thank you very much to Propane Goat for sending this one in. Wants to know, Phil, what was the biggest stumbling block that you had to overcome at the beginning of your poker career, and what steps did you take to address it?
I think what I struggled with the most was bankroll management.
Wow.
I just really, really liked pushing it. I like taking shots. And I don't know that I guess what I did to overcome it is actually what became my strategy, which is not what I would necessarily recommend to everybody. But I would allow myself to take shots in bigger games, but with a very limited stop loss. And then once I hit that stop loss, I would step back to my regular game and grind there. And a lot of people, once they take those shots, they have a really tough time stepping back down because they want to chase those losses. And I, for some reason, was able to do that. And actually, because I loved taking shots and kind of the idea of moving up the ladder in stakes, and the idea of potentially accelerating that by shot taking, I loved that idea so much that it actually drove me to work harder and grind in the smaller games so that I could take my next shot. But if I was not able to control myself and step back down after losing, let's say, 4 or 5 buy-ins at a game that's like 2 or 3 stakes higher than my usual game, I obviously could have lost everything more than once.
Wow. So, and I did not expect that answer about bankroll management. Great question. Thank you very much, Propane Goat. And Phil, thank you for that answer. Thank you for all these wonderful answers. Thank you, everyone who sent in the questions to Phil Galfond. And again, a friendly reminder to all of you out there in our Cards Chat community. We would love to see you submit your questions for our future podcast guests in the dedicated thread on the forums. Guys, please be sure to give us a good review on iTunes and spread the word via your social media channels if you like the show. Phil, Dan, this has been phenomenally enjoyable on my end. I appreciate, again, your time so much. Anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go?
No, honestly, no. I've had a great time.
Hey.
We covered everything. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you for having me on and for the really thoughtful interview.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Thank you again very, very much. Thank you all for tuning in once again to another episode of the Cards Chat Podcast. I'm Robbie Strazynski. You can follow me on Twitter at CardPlayerLife. I wish you all a wonderful day.